So today I'm going to give you a tour of my greenhouse, and it is pretty chock-a-block. I've only got a small greenhouse and I do try to fill it with as much as I can. So this year I've tried these tomato halos, and actually they are so much easier to grow it to water than the bottles that I've kind of put on the top. I have used this system in the past as well. They're just kind of cut up pipes to create a bit of a halo, and they work well, but the halos are much better. I've avoided them in the past because they're quite expensive, but I did find some cheaper kind of a deal on Amazon, so I wanted to see how they would work with buckets this year. I've also, as you can see here, invested in some strings, and I've got them hooked up to the kind of inserts of the glass in the greenhouse. There's these specialist little bolts you can get. I've never been able to find them before, but yeah, we found them this year, and the strings are working okay. I like the strings, much easier than canes. However, the canes mean that the tomatoes, you can move them about a lot more easy. So you can see this year I've got a cucumber in the left hand corner there, and that's going along the string. And I've got 4 aubergine plants, and these aubergine plants have been kind of trimmed into the classic V shape, and I've taken the suckers out recently, and they're all flowering, but as yet we have no fruit. And these are my tomatillo plants, and they are growing much better in the greenhouse than outside, but they are starting to flower outside. That is my lemongrass plants on my little shelf here. I've got some more pepper plants, which probably won't produce a pepper this year, but you know, you never know. I'll keep on going. And I've got some Thai and lemon basil at the end there. And these are the tomato pepper plants. And these are the tomatoes on the right hand side of the greenhouse, and you can see some tomatoes. We've got some fruit there, and they are growing pretty tall. I've also, where it's kind of reached the end of the string, I've got another string kind of going into the middle. Some of them I'm going to do that with, and some of them I'm not, because I don't want like the tomatoes blocking all the light of the greenhouse. So because the way the greenhouse is kind of situated in the garden, it doesn't get a great deal of light anyway, but it's the heat that kind of brings the plants on. But in order to ripen the plants, you need some light. So I am conscious of blocking out all of the light. It is just a small garden greenhouse. At the end of the day, it has got a lot growing into it. That's how easy the strings are. You just simply wind them round. I keep the tomatoes hooked into these canes that I've got, using just like these simple little wire things, and I reuse them year after year so they don't go to waste, and they're so much easier than string to use. You just literally pick a piece of wire out and hook it around the tomato, which I'm kind of showing you now with the one hand up. I've just found a side shoot first that needs to come out, and that's kind of side shooting is just a constant job when you've got tomatoes, just constantly going around pulling out those side shoots. And there I've just hooked that onto the cane, so that because the canes are in buckets and the buckets haven't got a great deal of depth, there is a bit of wobble there in the canes. So probably the strings are the better solution for the greenhouse, but having the canes there means that I can move the tomatoes right outside the greenhouse, or in different places when I need to free up the greenhouse just to let a little bit more air. And you can see I've got a few plants outside. So I've also got quite a few, I don't waste any plants, so they've all been kind of planted around here. They don't grow that tall outside, but they do produce a crop. There are small tomatoes, and they grow all right. We'll see. I'll show you the kind of progress of these. I've never grown so many tomatoes outside before. They seem to have kind of a load of plants, so I've got them everywhere. I've got them tucked into the borders here, just down by the side of the decking. There's little plants everywhere, in between things. I've just taken these plants. I've just replaced the elephant garlic that was standing there, so I've popped in some tomatoes there as well. And they're doing quite well because they started life in the greenhouse, so they're already kind of halfway there. But these ones have been outside the entire time, and you can already see I've got quite a big tomato on here, so I'm quite pleased with that. And you can see I'm also using the halo there, which is so much easier to use. And the ones behind these benches, these tomatoes, are just literally spare plants that would have never done anything. So they've been potted up into the biggest pot I can find, which in some cases isn't that big, but they're surviving. These ones have been potted up properly in time, and I think they do particularly well because they've got the wall behind them and they benefit from the kind of residual heat from that wall, because they are doing very well as the greenhouse tomatoes. And I've got a couple of temperature sensors, and down here in this in this patio area, it is a bit of a heat sink. It's very similar to the greenhouse. So these ones that I was just talking about, they are potted up. They are meant probably for the compost heap, really, but I always just see what happens. They run the trays, so the trays collect water. I've also got 2 of these baskets, and they've done absolutely. They look like they were dying for most of the year, but they are starting now to produce fruit. I've got my first red tomato on them. So I am actually hopeful that I might get a little mini crop. These are some sort of trailing tomato. I forget the variety now, but they are some sort of trailing. I will go through the varieties at the end of the year when I start cropping these things. This is some lemon thyme. They're just delicious. And that's it for tomato update.